It is a beautiful day to just show up, even if you have laryngitis. Hello, everyone. Yvonne Heath here, nurse turned author, speaker, and changemaker, and your host. Welcome to Navigating Grief with Heart and Humor, where we talk about plan and prepare for grief, transitions, end of life, and all the messiness in between, so we can live fully now and diffuse the fear. I want people to embrace change and become proactive if they aren't already. And if you are, there's always room for improvement, isn't there? So I invite you to set an intention as we have this conversation. I say conversation because my voice is sort of in and out. There's that life is unpredictable, prepare for anything, because I woke up this morning with no voice. And I thought, oh my goodness, I have my show today. And then I thought, well, I bring my message with heart and humor. So feel free to laugh at me as I laugh at myself because my voice sounds kind of ridiculous. And at the same time, I invite you to set an intention for today. And I want to land here and forget about the noise out there, forget about my squeaky voice. And I'm going to take two slow, deep breaths so I can just be fully present here with you. And I invite you to do the same, or whatever ritual helps you to be mindful and land here. So I'm going to take two slow, deep breaths. I just love the way that makes me feel more grounded. And despite my voice, I can still share a message because I have spent my entire life preparing for this and all the experience with grief, transitions, end of life, of those I love, of those I cared about, and the excessive suffering. I realized that it all had purpose. And it started in 2014. And in 2015, I launched my book, Love Your Life to Death. We spent the last several episodes navigating through each chapter. And it's been a journey for me. And I hope that you have found a few nuggets that can help you to embrace life and grief and death. It's an ongoing process of learning, unlearning, and evolving, of forgiving our past, what we wish we had done differently, knowing that we only did what we could do with the knowledge that we had. So we forgive ourselves and others, and we want to move forward and do it differently and better from here on in. Will we do it perfectly? No. And please, just that bar of perfection, just get rid of it. Do it with humanness, with kindness, with love, and with gratitude. And that is the greatest thing that you can do. If you just show up for yourself and others with love and gratitude in mind, it is always a good thing. And so I'll put my glasses on. I might not be able to see or to speak, but I at least want to be able to see. I mean, really, this is so silly. So my book, Love Your Life to Death. I have absolutely been on this journey, learning with you every step of the way. Every chapter lands differently, even though I read my book every single year and every year and many other books. And I attend webinars and I speak to people who have been in the deepest trenches of grief or work as a professional who cares for others. And they bring me such profound wisdom. And I find wisdom in the words that I have written and the stories that I have shared. And I'm just forever grateful to have this opportunity to share this with you. So in the previous chapters, let's just do a little recap. Chapter 1, I shared my nursing journey and the lessons I learned about life and death. Excuse me. And I've shared so many times that I wish I knew this at the beginning of my nursing career and not at the end. And yet I know and I accept that this is exactly how it was meant to be. Because if I had been proactive, if I had beliefs about life and death, that created a soft landing for me. If I had those coping skills and strategies, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have written this book. And so, as much as I want to be the change for our youth so they can do it differently than I did, I know that every life experience I had brought me to this wisdom today. And so, instead of looking back and wishing I had done it differently, I am grateful for learning to do it differently now. And when we explored in chapter 2 why we've become so scared to death of death, it really makes sense, doesn't it? I mean, as our society evolved, it's like we sanitized our society. The funeral homes took care of people when they died. The hospitals took care of people. We treated people to death, so people were not at home. We became so busy with so many other things that we no longer normalized conversations about life, grief, and death. In the past, we didn't have a choice. People died at home. We cared for them at home. And so we need to embrace, be grateful for our technology and bring grief and death back to community. We do not have to professionalize everything. We need to be compassionate communities who just show up, who are a part of the process, no matter what people are dealing with, no matter what grief. And when it comes to end of life, our loved ones dying, let's be that compassionate community. So people are not left in silos of silence and isolation and suffering. We do not need professionals to take care of everything. They need to be a part of our journey, not our entire journey. And if we can understand why we've become scared to death of death and choose to do it differently from here on in, we can create change. We can create social change. And it takes you and it takes me. It is not out to them over there, whoever they may be. In chapter 3, it was a hard conversation of talking about trying to cure death and having a better understanding of what medical futility is, treating people with medical interventions that will only prolong a sick life or the dying process. And yet we feel that we are not giving up. If somebody has another chemo, another operation, another transfusion, and what we need to do is step back and look at the whole picture. If someone has a chronic illness, a terminal illness that will lead to their death, keeping them alive, the elephant in the room is sometimes cruel. And I know that's a hard thing to hear. I realize in our society, when we see our animals suffering, our dogs, we euthanize them. And we have here in Canada and in different places embraced MAID, medical assistance in dying. And that is one option. And there are many other options that we can embrace throughout life. We can normalize conversations. We can understand that saying no to that chemo and just going home and having comfort measures is not giving up. It is taking a different taking a different road. And we never have to give up hope. It's what we are hoping for that can change, right? We don't have to take away people's hope by comfort only. And I don't even want to say comfort only, comfort measures. That is beautiful care from the heart. And we can hope for a cure. And when that is no longer possible, we can hope for the rest of our lives to be pain-free, to get to that wedding, hope to visit someone one more time, and at the end, we can hope for a peaceful death. So we never have to give up hope, and we never have to treat people to death with big medical technology. If we treat people with compassion and kindness, that is the greatest thing we can do. So let's embrace those conversations. And again, when you look back and you think, oh my goodness, I wish that I wouldn't have forced dad, mom, whoever, to have all that chemo or that other surgery. Forgive yourself and know that you were doing the very best you could because you thought that was the right decision at the time. In chapter 4, we talk about dying peacefully starts with living fully. And there's so many things that we can do along our life to live fully so that we can die peacefully. Letting go of our attachments, letting go of our understanding our triggers from the past, getting the help we need from a friend, a counselor, a therapist, somebody to enable us to, we have many people have childhood trauma and we stay triggered. And many people say, I don't want to go to therapy. I don't want to talk about all the things that have gone on in my life. Perhaps we can share. And then the most important thing is, how is it affecting you now? Right? How is it affecting you now? So that you can unravel and unpack that. So that you can live the rest of your life more empowered, resilient, with greater joy, and with a greater capacity. We can't forget the things that have happened to us, but we can turn our wounds into wisdom. We can allow our grief attacks when they happen. We can share our stories unapologetically, and we can learn to move forward with more peace and acceptance and understanding of ourselves and others. Easier said than done? Absolutely. All of this stuff is. And that's okay, because it's worth it. You are worth it. You have value and you matter no matter what has transpired in your life, no matter what people have told you. I was at an event last night. I had the privilege of moderating a panel and being part of the panel discussion. And it was addressing the opioid crisis here in Canada and how harm reduction is the direction we need to move into. Just say no. It doesn't work. P.S. It doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And people are dying. Staggering numbers of people are dying. And I looked back at my past and my decisions and our decisions as a family as Tyler navigated his journey with drugs and addiction. And it was painful to know the decisions we made based on the knowledge that we had. I would do it so differently now because I have new knowledge. And so I forgive myself and I am doing it differently moving forward. And I unapologetically share my story and the things I didn't know what I didn't know. And I'm moving forward. And that is the best we can do. Do it differently next time. Chapter 5, as we move forward with repairing our internal damage and finding our bliss. It's funny when so many people think, I don't know what my passion or my purpose is. And that's okay. Some of us have a calling and some of us have a passion. Some have a purpose and some have big missions. And maybe your passion is whatever you love to do. Maybe you're passionate about making puzzles, walking dogs, being a great teacher, about being a mom. having great conversations. We don't have to look very far to find a passion in our lives. It's funny, we're always striving for more. And I invite you to just sit back and look all around you at the things that bring you joy and find passion in them. And if you are called to bigger purpose, like some of us are called to leave our nursing career and live outside of our comfort zone and become authors and speakers. It was never on my radar. I was called to it. And if you are called to that greater passion and purpose, find people who will support you in that. And if it isn't your family, and if it isn't your friends, that's okay. There are many of us out there. Call me anytime. I promise you we'll have a great conversation because that is one of my passions, having deep, meaningful conversations. And, part of that repairing your internal damage is accepting your flawed, imperfect human self. You're perfectly imperfect. It feels so good to finally accept myself, warts, flaws, cellulite, and all. Do I like everything? Well, if I didn't have to have little broken blue veins and scars and cellulite, I'd say, sure, that's not going to happen. So I am perfectly imperfect, and I embrace all of me. I love when my daughter once said, Mom, what are all those blue veins in your legs, and why do your knees look like croissants? I laughed for an hour, and I said, I have those little blue veins in my legs because I gave birth to twins, and you're one of them. And I laughed, and she laughed. Let's laugh at ourselves. Isn't that the better choice? So chapter 6 was about spirituality forgotten and finding your post. And I loved going on my spiritual journey and speaking to so many different spiritual journey people who some were religious, others were not. Some had eclectic beliefs. Some had said, why do I have to believe anything? I've just loved my life. And I learned so much about my own the things I needed to learn and unlearn and be okay with it and find my own spiritual path. The spiritual path where I choose to believe that we stay spiritually connected, and I'm just here to live my very best life and be the change I want to see in the world and accept the things that I wish were different, right? That maybe we all have a belief about life, death, and the thing that honestly I wish that we could embrace life, grief, and death, and that there was something inside of each and every one of us that gave us some peace, knowing that we do not always get a warning about death, and we do not all die of old age. And I wish that every single human had peace with that. And I know that I will never achieve that, but I will work at that for the rest of my life. That is my vision, that everyone lives, grieves, and dies well. And so that is my spirituality. And my post, that thing that I can hold on to when life is unpredictable and change is the only constant and grief arrives, trauma crisis, I turn to nature. And I know that in nature I find peace, and I'm drawn to it, and I am a part of something beautiful and different. And I know there is this universal collective consciousness, this spirituality. I don't have to understand it all. I'm at peace with that. And that is my post. So, whatever spiritual journey you choose to go on, I invite you to choose to believe something that will bring you peace on this journey we call life. and at the end of life. Chapter 7, we talked about knowing, understanding, and accepting grief. Again, so many of us have a preconceived idea about grief, that it's what we feel simply when someone dies, and it's sadness. And it's yes, and grief is also our mental, physical, and emotional reaction to loss, transitions, and change, and whatever makes our heartache. And in the next chapter is having the talk with children about grief. And here's the thing: if we have the talk throughout life, if we normalize these conversations, if we don't make it a big reveal that everything that lives dies and that grief is a part of our journey, we normalize these conversations for our children instead of trying to protect them from that, instead of giving them false information like, oh, I'm going to live for a long time, or that everything about life, grief, and death. Be the change. And you don't have to be strong for everyone. We are learning as we move forward. My children, I can't count how many times they've heard me say, I have no idea. Let's find that out together. Or I don't know, what do you think? Let's talk about that. I've normalized these conversations in our family. I always say to people, when I was writing my book, I almost felt like our twins, Jane and Tanner, were like our experiment, because they were 9, living at home still, obviously. And they were part of all the conversations, the hard ones, the tears, the conversations the stories people shared with me. And our children, as I am recording this, are 17 years old. And they know how to just show up. We've normalized conversations. We have banter about life, grief, and death. And we have an anniversary, or we're going out on a date, Jordy and I. The kids will laugh because so many times when we've gone to celebrate something, we've gone to a death symposium or something. So they'll say, oh, you're going on a date? Are you going to the grief cafe? And I love that. I love that they can tease us about this. Wouldn't that be a better thing to do? And if you haven't normalized these conversations, start now, because it's never too late to grow, evolve, and change. And in the next chapters, we talked about opportunity that awaits in the dying process, that is not there for people when they die suddenly. And in that dying process, there is time for compassion and tears and conversation. And if we talk about plan and prepare with all of our legal jargon and our wills and power of attorney and are we registered organ donor, if we take care of that long before the dying process, and someone is dying in the process, they are still living, we can make the very most of that time. And we can create joy, because grief and joy can coexist. And so that is something to think about and embrace. Wouldn't it be wonderful? Wouldn't it be wonderful to create those opportunities? And in chapter 10 and 11, that's what I address, a comparison of what happens when we do not prepare, when people die in grief and anxiety and regret and bitterness. We're in the same scenario where people are well prepared and they create opportunity in their loved one's dying process, and the difference that it makes. And it makes all the difference in the world. And so when we have that talk, we have that talk with ourselves first, because that is the most important talk to have. And if you want to convince other people to embrace this change, to talk about, plan, and prepare for grief, death, dying, and everything in between, it starts with you. It starts with you. So I will share the final thoughts at the very end of my book. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. We've all heard it. We've read it, and maybe we've even said it. But have we really ever taken it to heart? Do we really believe that no matter what happened yesterday, and no matter what we anticipate for tomorrow, today, right here, right now, is all that we have, all that matters? We can choose what we do in this moment, now. Writing this book has been an educational and sometimes painful process for me, as I imagine reading it or going through it as we have, has been for you. Together, we have been on a journey, an emotional journey. We've done some soul searching and looked in places in our hearts and minds we may have ignored for years. We have begun a life-changing and ongoing process. This is not a place where you simply arrive and all is well forever. It will require continuous, committed learning, growing, and sharing. But we have come a long way, and we will suffer less for having traveled this path together. Because only you can be the change that you want to see in the world. And only you can be the change you wish to see in your life and at the end of your life. So what could you do right here, right now, to be more fulfilled in your life, to create unshakable happiness, to die with fewer regrets? If you knew your life would be over soon, what would you change? So I invite you to learn to love your life, and it will love you back. And I will leave that last thought with you. And I have made it my life's mission to evolve and to grow and to learn and to be the messenger. There will never be a time in my life where I know it all. There will never be a time where I get it all right. And that's okay. I'm willing to get it wrong. And that is why I can just show up when someone is grieving, when someone's in crisis or trauma or dying. I can just show up because I lead with my heart. And I know that I am there to just love them in their process. I am not there as a nurse. I am not there as a professional or any sort of expert. I'm there as a human being who is willing to just be present, knowing I can't fix it and it's uncomfortable, and I'm going to just show up anyway. And I invite you to do the same. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart, for taking this journey with me through the chapters of my book. I am so grateful for everything that you are bringing to the table. In every conversation, in every day, I am learning something new about how to be the best version of myself and how to help others do that and do the same in their lives. And the very first thing that we need to accept is that we can only do what we can do with the information that we have. We can only diffuse the fear if we embrace these conversations. The fear is never going to go away entirely. I feel fear many times when I'm speaking to someone who is suffering, when I am going on a stage in front of an audience, and that's okay. It's okay to feel fear. It's okay to verbalize. I am uncomfortable. I don't know what to do, and I don't know what to say. And don't forget, we have not normalized this vulnerability in our society. women in particular, women in particular have been sort of trained to be the strong one, to be the glue, to not show their emotions. Well, how's that working out for us, right? And when we think of that, and I believe and I know that there is a very strong correlation between unresolved grief, being ill prepared for grief, not expressing our grief, the correlation to mental and physical health issues and emotional. It is time for us to allow our humanness to learn to be compassionate communities, to just show up for one another, to be the change that we want to see. It starts with you and it starts with me. So thank you again for joining me, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. And as always, I invite you to go to my website, loveyourlifetodeath.com. There's resources there, resources from many others that I have learned from. Of course, the IJustShowedUp bracelets that I always have with me, because it reminds me to just show up for myself first and just show up for others. My book, Love Your Life to Death, of course. My program, Get Ready for Grief, which I believe is an invaluable lifetime resource. Because when grief arrives in your life, in 6 months, in 6 years, you may not remember our conversation. And I'm also grateful that you have the archived episodes here that you can go back to. And of course, there are so many other beautiful, wonderful show hosts with absolutely life-changing information to share. So always reach out to others for support. We are meant to connect in this world. We're meant to live in community. We do not have to do this alone. So thank you again. Thank you for being a part of this. And my call to action, as always, if you want to live your life fully, if you want to die peacefully, if you want to be able to just show up for yourself and for others, plan your life, plan your death, and then just love your life to death. And always bring your own tambourine to the party. Thanks so much. And, hopefully in the next episode, I'll have my voice back. It kind of just came and went, but that's life, isn't it? Very imperfect. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.